Hello, hello. Happy Wellness Wellbeing Wednesday, everybody. How are you guys doing? I'm super excited to be here. We are in Wellness Wellbeing Wednesday, and today is the last Wednesday of 2022 and the last week. I am just honored. We have a special guest that is going to be here with us. She is a guest speaker and is amazing. But before we get started, I want to do what I usually do, and then I will introduce her here, is just to have a few moments of stillness. We are in the series of identifying and embracing a worry-free lifestyle, and we are in part 8. Can you believe it? So today we are actually going to be talking about grief, if you saw that, and we are going to be talking about how grief and anxiety, how anxiety is a part of the grief. And so my question that I want you to be thinking about is, what acts of self-care do you give yourself when you are faced with anxiety and grief? So my name is Michelle Maynard MacArthur. I am honored to be here today, going to bring the music out, and just as we always do, I want to take a few moments of stillness, a few moments for anyone that is out there that is hurting, struggling, maybe grieving with what we're talking about. Maybe you've gone through some tragedies, some traumas, from the nightmare, horrific things that happened in Uvalde to the Ukraine. This is a moment of stillness, asking God to just put that hedge of protection over our world, our country, our state, our home, but most important, ourselves, our body. So just a few moments, just asking for that hedge of protection. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. We've got a lot of awarenesses that I am super excited to be talking about again, that I have been doing this month. We have HIV/AIDS awareness, National Hand Washing Day. Make sure our hands are washed for cold and flu season. Seasonal Affective Disorder Awareness Month, which is SADS. Most people know that as Universal Human Rights Month, International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And why I share that is, as I have been mentioning, it's not just the day, it's not just the week, the month, or even the year. It is always. It is a lifetime thing of recognizing, appreciating, embracing those with unique, differing abilities. As you know, I prefer to say the differing versus dis. National Champagne, and most important right now, I want to say National Grief Awareness. So my name is Michelle Maynard MacArthur, and I am your hospitality, health, and wellness strategist that is here to help guide you through that positive process for change. And that is with our pillars of a lean, holistic healing approach from the inside out. That lean goes into your lifestyle, your exercise, your attitude, and your nutrition. And my devotion is to help you executives, entrepreneurs, retirees improve your health and well-being while you find that perfect mind, body, and soul balance between what's most important is your self-care, family, work, and play. The tips are being brought to you by MacArthur Accommodations, where we are a hospitality, health, and wellness coaching and consulting advisement company that specializes in that overall optimal health and wellness worldwide, with those innovations to reflect, recharge, and renew yourself one step at a time. I am a master certified health and wellness coach with the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute, and that complements a certification I have in traditional Chinese medicine, while I am actually studying for the board exam to bring you more knowledge. And so with that, I will be cutting back on some of the lives that I come. We'll still be bringing you tips where it has just a good value of information. And so, with that, I want to introduce our special guest that we have today. I'm honored that she has given her time to come 2 times today, earlier today and now. Michelle A. Gill is also known as the Grief Curator, and her she lives in the Washington, D.C. area. She is an author, a speaker, normalizing conversations about grief and loss, mental health advocacy, and disability awareness. So, thank you, Michelle, for coming in. I know there's some more things you've got to share with the listeners today. So, I just want to say thank you for being here and tell us a little bit more about what you do and why this is your passion and how did you come about that?
Oh, thanks, Michelle, for having me on. It's a real honor and pleasure since I love the work that you do. So, as Michelle said, I am Michelle Gill. I'm the Grief Curator, and I speak about grief and loss, mental health advocacy, and disability awareness, and normalizing those conversations because, quite frankly, a lot of us are uncomfortable with grief. And that's why sometimes we say things that are not necessarily helpful or supportive to people who are grieving. Things such as, oh, you really need to get over it by now because X amount of time has passed, or you shouldn't cry, or they wouldn't want you to be sad, and things of this nature. And so after I lost my dad about 4 years ago now, I experienced some of this. And after about a year and a half, it just came to me that this is something that I need to do. And it really started when a good friend of mine encouraged me to write my memoir. And she said, you really need to tell a little bit about your dad and about your experience in grieving. And so I did that, and that will hopefully be coming out sometime soon in 2023. And if you are interested in that, I have a wait list. We have not set a release date yet, but if you go to my website, you'll be able to sign up for that. So I did that, and I just realized, this is something that I enjoy talking about in the sense that I wanted to be a support. I wanted to take the lessons that I learned while going through this grief journey and just hold space for people, because it seemed like not enough people were doing that, were holding space or knew how to hold space. I like to say that, the Victorian era, they had certain rules and rituals around grief and mourning. You would wear black for the first year, purple for the second, and so on and so forth. And, it got to be just a tremendous burden on people. I don't want to do these things. But the problem is that once they threw those out, they didn't replace it with anything for the majority of our society. And so now people don't know what to do about people who are grieving and about death. And so that's what I do. I just hold space for people who are going through a tough time. And, grief covers so much. Significant loss can be the loss of a person, could be loss of a fur baby, could be the loss of a job, the loss of a dream. And of course, now as we're seeing the loss of a country for people who are refugees in war-torn places. So, it's all of these things. It's just holding space and letting people express their grief. And too often we don't do that. So that's really what I do. I hold space for those types of people, and also kind of teach by way of living how to hold space and what are the correct things that you should say to somebody who's grieving. So thank you so much, Michelle, for allowing me to be here.
Yes, well, it's very important. And what you do is just, I want to say, critical in our world today. And while I have been talking about this identifying and embracing a worry free lifestyle from the book, from from the book from Worry Free Living, that I indicated the doctors in the chat and the notes right there. It's important because there are all types of anxiety, worry, grief that people go through. And I see how that correlated from the series I did prior of nonviolent communication and how we address and how we interact with people. And we are in different times, not just from the pandemic of being sheltered in, um, what everybody has gone through, but just with grief. And it's not talked about enough because it's sensitive matters. While I give the disclaimer, as I always like to do, is this show, as far as that we are talking right now, and whenever we talk about this, anytime you hear me, it's for educational purposes only. We are not here to treat, diagnose, or prescribe. So if you are hearing this and you are in need of medical attention, immediate medical attention, please seek a medical professional immediately. If you need some resources, I've gone through the different stages where self-care, that was my question. What acts of self-care do you give yourself when you are dealing with anxiety and grief? What do you do for yourself? That's one of the stages. Then you have talking to a loved one, talking to a friend, talking to someone in your circle, or you may reach out for a coach, or you may need a counselor, a psychologist, or you may need a psychiatrist, or you may need even more. You may need to have a team of experts, which is where you would go into hospitalization. Nothing is to be ashamed of. This is mental health, is what I would like to say and applaud the younger generations. They brought it out. In my generation and before, it was, you don't talk about it. Oh, it's, it's something there's wrong with. Well, if we really start talking about it, and just for me, as I've been going through, just learning new aspects of caregiving and new aspects of where dementia and trauma-based injuries, mental, and the correlation from that, as well as the correlation from your physical, you hear me talk about in Chinese medicine. So I would love to hear from you, and for you to say, when you have gone through this journey, you have some great stuff on your website, and I want people, I will be putting this on right here. You can get in touch with Michelle, check out her website, go subscribe. When you went through this journey and you came up with lots of self-care of what to do, can you share some of just those pointers, maybe just 5 little pointers that you have to share?
Sure. So one of the things that, especially within the first 6 months to a year, after losing a loved one specifically, grief takes a toll on the body. So I always tell people the number one thing that you must do is hydrate, because we cry a lot when we're grieving. We cry a lot when we're depressed. And you need to replace that water. Very good. I love, Michelle, that you took a sip of water. That's perfect. Excuse me. So yes, hydrate. I learned to keep a bottle of water on my bedside table during that first year. And of course, I still do that now anyway. But it became because I wasn't doing it, that first week after my dad passed away, and I ended up giving myself a migraine because I was so dehydrated. The second thing is, don't ignore your body. So probably about 3 months after my dad passed away, I had severe chest pains. I really thought, oh boy, is this a heart attack? And I was talking to a dear friend of mine who's also a colleague. And she said, you need to go. You need to go right now to urgent care, emergency room, wherever. You need to go get checked out. Do not play around with that. And I went, and the doctor on call, it was really interesting. The whole time I was there, I was telling myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And she came in, and I was doing pretty good. And she said, well, your EKG looks fine, but have you been under any stress lately? And I just lost it. And I said, well, yes, I've lost my dad. And she's like, well, that will do it. And it was she was a really supportive and listened to me, and basically said, yeah, this is normal. This is natural. You will get chest pain. She said, don't ignore them, but just know that having these types of symptoms is natural and normal for grief. So, if that happens, it's most likely grief, but please don't ignore it and get it checked out. The other thing too is I took a lot of naps because I was just worn out emotionally and mentally. If you need to take a nap, naps are great. I don't know. We live in this capitalistic society that says you must be producing at all times, or otherwise you aren't worth anything. No, you need to rest. You need to rest your body. You need to rest your mind. You need to rest your heart and your soul during this grieving process. So take naps and don't feel guilty about it. I did. And a third thing is to meet with friends who support you. And the key there is friends who support you. Grief and the loss of a person specifically will show you truly who your friends are and who will be there, not just that week, not just 2 weeks after, but months and years afterwards. And so those people, that's your support system. Meet with them, hang out with them. Even if you don't necessarily feel like it. Sometimes I've gone through this personally where I like, oh, why did I say I was going to go hang out with so-and-so? I just want to sleep. For me, that was a way to just give in to the grief, to give in to the depression that I was feeling. But I found that once I went out, and I didn't stay for a long time. I did have boundaries. I was like, okay, I'm going to stay for an hour. I'm going to stay for 2 hours. That kind of lifted my load because it took the focus off of the grief or off of the depression or off of whatever it was and put it on another person where I could just interact with them. And so that was it was good. It was healthy. But also remember on the flip side that if you don't feel like going out, don't feel pressured. Don't feel pressured. I talked to another friend of mine who recently lost her husband, and she said, she was that they told her, they didn't ask her whether she wanted to go to lunch. They told her that we're going to meet for lunch, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I just don't have the energy. And, I told her, I said, that's fine. You don't need to go. You don't owe them anything. And you're in the first year of grief. It's totally fine to make like a hermit and to sit in silence and also crying with your grief, to sit with your grief, to not run away from it. So those are kind of the little things. So hydration, napping, meeting up with friends, and making sure that you take care of yourself physically. So if you feel any symptoms like that, make sure you go and just get it checked out.
Love it. Love it. That's powerful, Michelle. And this morning, two Michelles. It's like usually they, in the elephant strategy, they call me 3M. So I said, we got Michelle A and 3M here, it was some great conversations. We were from Russia to England to Washington, D.C. to Texas. I think we even had Africa in the house. So, I want to just kind of circle back around on something that you said and really emphasize that because it resonated and this was quite some time ago when I lost my grandmother. It's probably been at least a decade, maybe 2. Time kind of flies by when we're having fun, right? And I remember my family in Argentina calling me the day after. I thought it was really strange. I said I didn't get a phone call, and that was, back in the day where I didn't get something, but I was out. So maybe they called me after. They intentionally did that because my grandmother passed away on my birthday. And they wanted to make sure for me to enjoy that day and not have a bad negative resignation or a trigger, because they wanted to share with me how important that day was, that the day that my grandmother chose to go. And for me as a believer, I love sharing about everlasting life. There is hope, there is joy in grief to find, but you have to go through the pains. But they shared that the day that my abuela chose to go, up to heaven, the angels took her back to heaven, is the same day that the angels brought me down. And this was a celebration. And the way they put that in the culture there, it really impacted me for now, probably, I guess it's been quite some time. And I remember that. I also remember just having that Victorian style, that old style, that it was important for me to do that, coming from the Vanderbilt Book of Advocacy and all these different things from hospitality, doing things properly. I said, I'm going to do that for me. I'm going to wear black for a year because it is a way that I can mourn when I'm out and about, that I don't have to say anything to anybody. They don't even have to know, but it is me expressing myself, as we talk about the liver, to go through. And I did it. I did it until I didn't even get, I was a little shy of a year, because people would just not stop. I bought a whole wardrobe. Everything was black. Can you just not wear black? And you really focused on something to where it's like, encourage if that's what you want to do. But then there's other colors that you can go. Queen Victoria, she wore black, and then she did purple, and then there's different ways. But it's okay, because we all grieve differently. And it doesn't matter. You could be losing a job. You could be in traumas. Whatever that grief is, it will be different. What is for Michelle A to what is for 3M to what is for a family member or someone on the street is all different. And we don't know how each of us will react to triggers. Sometimes we don't even know the triggers. And so I just want to say, be cautious, because this is a very delicate time, and it's hard. It's hard stuff. It's painful. But with anything, life on this earth is very short, and it is hard, but we keep going. And I want to use that to say, to encourage anyone listening, is if you are struggling, reach out. I will put after the live today, and Michelle, if you will do also different resources, from the suicide hotline to maybe there's the grief hotline. Obviously, we'll put again Michelle's contact information, and find your support groups, find that. But if you feel that you are beyond panic attacks, palpitations, or like Michelle A mentioned, as far as the issues going in, go get a physical. You need to have those checkups, have blood work, make sure it's not affected you somehow physically, because it's not just the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, but the physical. It's the whole package. So
yeah, so true. And I think it's beautiful that you chose to wear black for a year. And that's the thing, it's whatever ritual you decide to use in order to honor your grief, excuse me, that is for you to decide. And that's the one unfortunate part about grief, is that it is so personal. It's like our fingerprint. And so nobody can tell you what your grief process is going to look like. You aren't going to know until the moment it happens, and you start walking it through, and you will learn so much about yourself. And there are wonderful books on my website. I do have for resources and things like that, and they're great to read. They're great for support. They're not gonna tell you, okay, now Michelle, this is how your grief is going, and you're gonna do this and that and X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people bring up the 5 stages of grief. I just want to put it out there today, in case you have not heard this, that the 5 stages of grief, specifically by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, were written for those who are in the act of dying, those who are have a terminal illness, and they are going through these stages. They do not necessarily apply to those who are left behind. There are a lot of aspects of those 5 stages that grievers go through: anger, denial, acceptance, all of that, but it's not linear at all. And I kind of expected that when I started going through my grief process with my dad. And that's not what happened. I would be angry one day, and I would be in denial the next, and then I would be accepting, and then I would be in denial again. So it's not linear. Grievers need patience and empathy the most. And one my tagline is that grief is not a problem to be fixed. It is love with nowhere to go. And that is very true. Like, love is energy. And I have all this love for my dad that no longer has a physical, tangible place to go. So I have chosen to take that and rechannel that energy out, to those who are grieving, to love them where they are and to hold space for them. So yes, the grief journey is difficult, and we do walk it alone, but we're kind of walking in parallel. So we're not really alone. We're alone and yet not alone at the same time. Um, and grief is different depending, I do not know what it is like to grieve a child. I do not know what it's like to grieve a spouse, but there are commonalities across all the grief, but they are different. So never compare your grief to someone else's. Just hold space for theirs.
Love it. Love it. Well, I want to. I wouldn't be me if I didn't leave. There's a couple of scriptures that resonate with me, and the one from this morning was just to be still. Psalms 46:10.
Mhm.
And when we talk about worry and anxiety, is my daughter's scripture is 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxieties to Him because He cares. And when you feel that you are so alone, that there is no one, God is there, Jesus is there. And I have found, while I'm going through a process right now, my parents are still here. But I can see as our parents age, we get to that point that we're grieving that while we're taking care, and it's hard because they're here and we want to enjoy, but it's not. And so I don't know what I'll be. I don't know, probably a hot mess. So and I'm pretty sure a big hot mess, but I will, I am grateful that my daddy is, just so strong in faith. And Isaiah 57:1, where the weak shall go. There's just scriptures. There's time that you can be still and do it on your time and what's for you. So, Michelle, this is
I'm sorry. I just had, because you said that you're going to be a hot mess. I bought a thing for myself. I'm not a hot mess. I'm a spicy disaster.
I love it.
I was like, oh, I have to share that.
And it's okay to be a hot mess. Half the
That's
time
right. That's right.
you see me, maybe if I'm on Instagram doing my quirkies, but that's a way to release. And that's a way. I love to dance. I love music. I used to figure skate. Muscle disease, I was all excited because I've been running. Well, the legs and the ankles and stuff gives out. My eyes give out. It's like I can't handle the light. I can't see. Okay, what do? I fall. I do. But we keep going. And you keep going. I want to encourage you. There is Michelle's contact information is here. We will provide others. If you have any questions, please reach out, pop it into the chat, let us know. And I am just honored. I would love for you to come back. Maybe we'll do something around mental health or another one of the times that you look on your calendar for next year.
Sure.
And we will be collaborating more so we can just really do what we need to do to make a difference.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, hang tight. Don't go out. I'm going to go ahead and I appreciate you and all that you are doing. And I am going to wish you all off for a beautiful, blessed, and prosperous day filled with abundant health. And before we close, is there any additional shameless plugs you want to give for the listeners, Michelle?
Well, just go ahead and sign up. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website. There's a link there. I send that out once a month, just monthly, and that catches you up on everything that's going on. So you will be the first to know when the book is actually launched. And I also do some other programs. I just concluded a holiday encouraging letter program, Help. Where you could sign up and I would send you a handwritten note of encouragement no matter what holiday you celebrate. So I just finished that and it was a success. So I'm going to be doing that in 2023 as well. And some other great things, just to, that somebody is here holding space for you. So
Love
thank
it.
you so much, Michelle, for having me here. And I too want to wish your listeners a wonderful, light, and peace-filled 2023.
Awesome. Well, happy holidays. Happy New Year, everybody. Go and just be filled with, as Michelle said, light and joy, peace, happiness, and hope, knowing that you are not alone as you are going through the process. Gonna wish you guys off, and thank you so much for being here. God bless you. Bye-bye.